What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Hardwood Show here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel, talking today's big 9-game NBA slate, 11 total games, but 9 on the main DraftKings slate. Here to break it down, usual Monday crew. We got Mangone, we got Third and Schlong, and I'm, of course, Draft Cheat. We'll throw it over to you, Mangone. I had most of last week off, a little Vegas trip, so spent the morning catching up on NBA. You missed you missed a lot if you miss a week of NBA this time, but I think I'm all caught up and ready to get back to the grind for at least a couple days before MLB opening day Thursday morning. So very fun time of year. And how you been and how you doing on this Monday afternoon?
Doing pretty good. I don't think it matters if you're caught up, DC, because listen, some clown's going to start that you weren't expecting today, and it's going to, mess things up. Happened a couple times last week where we were just absolutely confused by things. But it's that time of year. I saw DJ Wilson got signed to a 10-day contract for the Philadelphia 76ers. He is a March and April NBA hero. So we got all the clowns out right now. It's clearly that time of year, and we have baseball coming up. That means baseball is around the corner, which I'm pretty excited about. I had a pretty good baseball season last year. Felt like a bit of a grind, but hey, I think I got some good takes that are going to come for baseball. I think with some of the stuff I'm doing, and I'm excited to get your pitching breakdowns. I love the stuff that you do with the pitcher stuff, and feel like we're going to have a nice little winning formula for RPS. And I know I'm sure Bryce will be out there killing it. I know he closed the season strong in the showdown department. He just got fresh off that live final, so should be a fun time coming up this week.
Yeah, it's that time of year in NBA though where you miss a week and you get players playing 30 minutes a night who you hadn't heard of, or at least I hadn't heard of before I departed. Like this fella, Tosan Evbouman for the Detroit Pistons. I don't even know who this guy is, or at least I didn't until this morning. So it is silly season in the NBA. Bryce, I think you had the live NBA final this last weekend. Is that right? I didn't see the results of that. I assume they weren't amazing, or else I probably would have seen them popping up all over the Twitter timeline. But how'd that go, and how'd your last week of NBA go?
The week of NBA was really good. I know Mark did really well in the FanDuel final. He finished 2 points out of second there. He ended up finishing fourth. DraftKings final was kind of wild. I ended up game stacking Charlotte, Atlanta. So I was up top for a decent amount of the night, and then the game just totally blew out on Saturday. So that kind of screwed me a bit. Ended up finishing 25th. So it wasn't bad, but not necessarily the outcome you would have hoped for. I don't know if you saw the end of it. Peter Gibbons took one of the sickest beats I've seen in a while. He needed Denny Avdija to hit one of 2 free throws for $1 million, and he bricked both with 1 second left in the game to finish second. He was half a point behind Squid.
I imagine. I don't know Denny. Yeah, he has free throw percentage off the top of my head, but I imagine it's pretty high. It's like a straight shooter. Right?
It was less than I thought it was. It was 73.5%.
Okay.
So Gibbons was about, I think it was 92.5% to win.
Yeah.
Because there was no other plays that he could have lost to or anything like that.
That's pretty nice. I would guess even higher than that. Yeah. That's
he was going to come out to dinner with us and whatnot. And I was like, dude, please don't feel compelled to come. And he's like, yeah, I'm fucking out.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he's still, how much was second worth?
It was $500,000. So, I mean, $500,000 on hitting 1 or 2 free throws. It's at least second's still good. It's not like some of the older live finals would be so top, first heavy that, $500,000 is still pretty solid.
I don't feel as bad anymore, by the way. If it was dropped to 100,000, I would have felt I don't feel as bad anymore. I'll say.
You can see it both ways. You do feel a little bad. I mean, that's still a bad beat, but to be honest, no one's crying too hard over someone that won $500,000 on a night of DraftKings. So I can see it both ways for sure. We could go on and talk about all that stuff and the baseball season ahead and all the great sport, the March Madness, obviously. But we got 9 games to talk about, so we got to get started. We will, of course, go by the DraftKings order of games, and that means we start in Cleveland. Charlotte Hornets at Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland favored by 11.5 in this one, 206 total. Donovan Mitchell remains out for Cleveland. He'll be joined on the bench by Max Strus and Dean Wade. Evan Mobley is going to play, looks like, I think, on a minutes limit for this one. And then on the Charlotte side, obviously down a lot of guys, as they always are. Seth Curry out, Cody Martin out. The rest of the guys that have been out forever remain out for Charlotte. Only player we're really waiting on news for is Bryce McGowan, who's currently listed as questionable. We will start with you, sweet Travis Mangone. What do you got for us, Charlotte and Cleveland?
Yeah, Charlotte, I mean, there's been like a lot of consistency with them. We talk about some of these teams have been all over the place. There's definitely been consistency with these guys. I don't love this spot against Cleveland. I'll say that. It's definitely a little bit of a slower paced matchup. I mean, if you're pulling up Saberson, which I like to use, and they got the totals, they are the lowest team total on the entire slate. It's not a team that I absolutely love. I think there's better spends than going up the Bridges and Miller. And I mean, Man and Michik in the mid tier, like if you're MMEing, they're fine. They can pop off for stealing games, but I'm not playing them in like a single entry 3-max kind of format. They're more like just MME type of plays. And we were playing these guys for a while, but it seems like we've stopped, and I'm going to stop too on this. I don't really want to play a lot of them. And then the Cleveland side of the ball, they are missing Donovan Mitchell. They did just get blown out. I mean, absolutely blown out against the Heat. I think at one point the score was 84-46 I saw or something like that. It was absolutely insane. I think Charlotte's a team they'll be fine with. They can handle. Jared Allen has been a better play on FanDuel specifically. Seems like more of a better play over on FanDuel than DraftKings. And I haven't really been paying that Darius Garland tag that much at 7.7K. He hasn't really been paying it off. And just like thinking of how I can use my salary, especially with the way the slates are right now, we have so much value, it feels like always. And we're going to have a lot of value today that you can just get guys like Luka and Jokic, who we have on this slate, where playing some of these mid-tier guys that just don't feel like they're in his greatest spots, they just don't seem necessary. I know Karis LeVert can have a ceiling game, but he is 7-4 now. I just think for the most part, I want to be lower on this game. I think you can make an argument too. If you're sitting around on the slate, and let's say there's some news that pops up and you don't have starting lineups and you don't want to lock into someone, I think you would easily get away with fading this game. So for me, this is a game I want to be very much under on. Not a lot of plays that I want to get exposure to.
Makes sense. 9-game slate. This is the only game that locks in the early 7 p.m. Eastern time window. And this time of year, obviously, just a ton of news on the slate. I mean, that's always going to be the case on a 9-game slate, but especially now. And, even unexpected news is more likely this time of year in the NBA. So I think you do got to be careful who you play from this first game. I'm surprised that Donovan Mitchell's kind of overall, or not Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland's lack of production with Donovan Mitchell out. Not sure if you have a take there, Bryce. Anything you see that you want to lock into early on this Cleveland-Charlotte game?
I think there's a lot of really good spots later on in the slate compared to this one. I'm going to keep like the 3 Cleveland studs in my pool. My take on Garland is that like LeVert's just been taking so much usage from him. Like he kind of cannibalizes him a bit, like playing with the starters. Like Garland was doing much better when LeVert and his minutes were staggered more. So those two and Allen, I'd say Allen's my favorite, then LeVert, then Garland. If I had to rank them, don't really have anyone interest in anyone else on Cleveland. Just not really my favorite game here. Mobley is not really a play for me. I just don't think he's going to get the minutes here for the price tag. So I'm out on him. On the Charlotte side of the ball, lowest team total on the slate, not the best spot. Like I'm going to keep some Miles Bridges in there, but not any serious amount. It's a really tough matchup for Nick Richards, but I could see him maybe getting a little bit of extended run with how big Cleveland plays. So, if you want like a really under the radar play, it would be someone like him. Brandon Miller, don't really have much interest in him. Man, Michich, don't really do it for me either.
It's tough. Like this time of year for teams that have nothing to play for, it's like, yeah, you could, like in theory, Richards should play more against the big front court of Cleveland, but like Charlotte doesn't really care if they win or not, right? Well, so yeah, it's not like it's a playoff game and they got to extend the run. So yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like all three of us are pretty low on this game in general. We'll see if any more news pops up with it, but more than likely, you can almost save most of your roster spots for the rest of the slate. We'll move on to the next game. There are 3 games in the 7:30 Eastern time window. First one, we'll talk about Brooklyn and the Toronto Raptors. Both these teams are pretty banged up, especially on the Toronto side. We'll start with Brooklyn. They're missing Cam Johnson, Dennis Smith Jr. For this one. Most of their other guys are in, so they are, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say health. Ben Simmons out too. I wouldn't say healthy, but at least have enough bodies for sure. Toronto side, a little bit of a different story. I mean, Scotty Barnes obviously out. Emmanuel quickly going to miss this game. RJ Barrett going to miss this game. And then, pretty much down to bare bones at center too. Porter is out. Boucher is out. Pirtle is out. We've seen some big games from Kelly Olynyk in the last couple of weeks, Mangone. Certainly sets up well for him here. I think Toronto is pretty interesting. And then Brooklyn, yeah, I think they've got some reasonable plays. What do you see between the Raptors and the Nets, Mangone?
Yeah, one of the things you missed this weekend, DC, like random NBA things that maybe, I don't know if you caught it on the timeline, but Kevin Ollie was asked on the Dayron and Clowney substitution decision today, and he said, it'll be determined by the Holy Spirit. It will hit me. So I don't know if you want to trust a guy that just says that, hey, the Holy Spirit's going to hit me and tell me when to play guys and not play guys.
Yeah, not especially. No, I don't really want to trust that.
Yeah, so I'm just saying this is a sketchy situation. You could see the Nets. They sometimes just run out absolute clown show lineups. They're playing the Toronto Raptors, though. They are a clown team, so that at least helps a little bit. They're just playing these guys. Grady Dick is not 7K yet, DC. Maybe he'll get there in a couple weeks. We'll have to see. But I do think these Nets players, there are some okay options, and if you play them, it's really the spends. It's hoping Cam Thomas gets hot. It's hoping maybe Mikal Bridges at 6'9" is not a bad play. But for the most part, I'm currently on some Nets, but I'm looking to get off the Nets when more value opens up, because this is a slate where more value, I think, will open up and come through. I believe by the time we get to the start of this lock time, I'm going to say the Brooklyn Nets are still going to gain ownership, and I want to be under the field on these Nets because I just think there's better plays on the board that people are not adjusting to. So that's kind of how I take it. I understand Cam Thomas, though. Like I said, he'd probably be my favorite play. Toronto Raptors side, that is a tough one because Toronto can be really wonky with their minutes. They can absolutely like, for instance, this is one situation that I was pretty tilted by the other day. Jameis Ramsey got the start. It was against Washington. And I was like, okay, Jameis Ramsey is starting. This was news that we got 20 minutes before lock. Do I play Jameis Ramsey and swap some of my Peyton Pritchard for it at $1,500 less? The guy still only played 18 minutes. Yeah. I don't feel like these guys are completely safe. The only guys I really feel are actually safe on this team from over the past 2 weeks of watching, I think Grady Dick and I think Ochai Agbaji. I think those two guys at their prices are safe for the most part. I like their floor and ceiling combination. When it comes to the other ones, Bruce Brown at 6'2", I think there's routes where it can go bad. Kelly Olynyk at 7'1". I think he can pay off the tag, but I think there's routes where it can go really, really bad. Gary Trent Jr., he's been a little bit more consistent. I don't totally hate him here in this spot. And then all the other guys, the Nuwaras, the Ramseys, the Freeman Liberties, even if they are starters for the day. Let's say they're going to be 20% owned. I do not want to have like 60%. I don't feel like these are comfortable, cheap starting options. I'm not confident in it. Maybe you are. If you are, go ahead and shove on it. But I've played this game too much lately, and I just don't trust the coaching. So I think Toronto is a team. There's only 3 guys I truly trust. I think it's Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, and Gary Trent Jr. If you think the game is going to be close and competitive, you can make cases for Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown. And then if one of those guys' spots starts, just be careful. That's all I'm saying. You don't want your night to get buried because of one of these guys. I just think it's happened too much. I think we have to trust what we're seeing with this coaching staff. And, we've seen it with the Brooklyn staff, right? They've been frustrating for, the past 2 years. And I just don't want to take chances on that.
Yeah, I mean, a lost season for the Raptors, right? They've kind of made the big trade that, reset their season a little bit. And then the big injury to Barnes, the tragedy with RJ Barrett, now they're missing quickly. And it's just, I'm a little more confident than I would be if they were on the road. I think you kind of have to play your guys a little bit more at home, Bryce. But I think Mangone makes good points. Hard to trust the Raptors, I will say. Yeah, I didn't watch much NBA over the last few days, but looking at the stats, like at least in the last game, they really played through Kelly Olynyk as kind of the offensive pivot. Had 10 assists in that game, and they don't even have a real point guard, right? So they kind of have to, I think. So I don't really trust the minutes, but I do think there's some ceiling there. Interested to hear your thoughts here, Bryce, on Toronto and Brooklyn. Go ahead.
Toronto's been a team that's frustrated me for like a while. I haven't really been getting them right recently. So I kind of agree with Travis on a lot of what he said about Toronto. Like the guys I would feel good about playing here, like if you want to take some guys in this game, would be Dick, Agbaji, and Olynyk. Don't have any interest in whoever starts at point guard for them. And I'm assuming Bruce Brown starts, but that was like a weird one-off thing where he didn't start. I don't really have any interest in him off the bench. If he's back in the starting lineup, I would like him a bit more. I don't really think it's worth it taking shots on like some of these super cheap guys when I think we're going to get some pretty good value that's already opened up or will open up later on in the slate. So yeah, it's kind of like a Olynyk, Dick, Agbaji, Trent, and then Brown. If he starts, if Freeman, Liberty, or Ramsey start, they're playable for cheaper, but it's like they could also easily get 18 minutes on a slate that I think has pretty solid value. Seems very thin to me. Moving over to the Brooklyn side of the ball, we've talked about the lack of Toronto big men. I think this is a pretty good matchup for Claxton at 6,400. He's by far my favorite play on Brooklyn. After him, I like Cam Thomas. I always have a soft spot for Cam Thomas just because, he can shoot 30 times in a game and put up points like crazy. I always enjoy playing him more on DraftKings and FanDuel just because of the scoring systems. Outside of them, Bridges is playable. Don't ever love him. I think Schroeder is playable. Don't ever love him. And then seen some people some sites are a little higher on Lonnie Walker today. I don't really like that. I think if you wanted a cheap guy from the Nets, I'd go with Dorian Finney-Smith over him. So it'd be like the cheap guy in this game. And that's pretty much my pool. Not extremely high on the game, but I'm not going to eliminate some of these guys. The guy I really do like here is Claxton.
All right. That's Brooklyn and Toronto. We'll move to the next game in this window. It is Boston and Atlanta. I think a game that we're probably going to have some plays from, maybe on both sides, but for sure, I think on the Celtics side. Boston currently 11-point favorite. That line might have moved with the recent news. We just got news. Derek White going to miss this game. They were already without Drew Holiday and Xavier Tillman. So we should see, I assume, Mr. Pritchard in the starting lineup. Even their other guard, J.D. Davis, he doesn't play much, but I think he's listed questionable as well. So yeah, Pritchard, Brown, Tatum, maybe Porzingis, really good spots here, I think, for the remaining Celtics with their two starting backcourt guys out of the lineup. Atlanta going to continue to be without Trae Young, of course. They will also be without Jalen Johnson and Okongwu and Sadiq Bey and AJ Griffin. A lot of guys out for Boston this time of year. And we do have, like I said, a pretty high total sitting around 225 at the moment. From where I'm sitting right now, a man going Peyton Pritchard, our guy, kind of looks like a little bit of a free square on this slate. But go ahead, talk to me, Boston and Atlanta.
Yeah, last time I said Peyton Pritchard was a free square, lock him in. Don't overthink it. I got made fun of by the chat for using it as the play of the day on Saturday. I got made fun of for it, and it's okay. I still think he's a free play. I still think he is a free square. The spot's just too good. No Derek White. Yes, they're a little bit more healthier with Porzingis, Brown, and Tatum, but I definitely like Pritchard. I think right now at this time, I think he is definitely a free square. I just think you play him. Now, things could change if we gain some more news where he's not an absolute free square, but right now I think he is. So I'm definitely very interested in Peyton Pritchard right here. I think he plays in, I think he starts for one. And because I don't think they're going to start like Jaylen Brown at point guard, right? They're probably going to start Pritchard.
Pritchard's got to start, right? I mean, come on.
I would think so. The only other weird thing they could do is they could start Brown at the 1 and then go Pritchard or go Hauser at the 2, Tatum at the 3, Horford at the 4, and Porzingis at the 5. Like they could do that. I don't think that makes sense. I think you bring Hauser off the bench. I think it makes way more sense to do that. You have Pritchard start, and it's a good spot for him. He's going to play in blowout as well. Xavier Tillman is missing as well. That's another piece of news that we got. Am I missing anything else there, or is that mainly what we got so far, DC? Was it just those two?
Yeah, that's it. That's it so far.
It's hard to get to it. Like, obviously, when you see Tillman out, you think, oh, this could be a Luke Cornett spot. Like, they still have their big, so it's not as exciting to kind of consider them. But I do like Pritchard, and BG3, I get it. He says Pritchard is starting. We thought this the other day, and they randomly went another way. So I'm just saying the route they could go. But Pritchard's my favorite play right now, no doubt. You have to like Tatum and Brown and Porzingis, all his spends. They're all good plays. They're playing against Atlanta. We know how bad Atlanta can be. Yes, it hasn't been since like when they had Trae Young in the lineup. It's definitely different, but we can still attack Atlanta, especially with a team like Boston. So love Peyton Pritchard there. I don't think I'm going to get to DeJounte Murray here today. I will say DeJounte Murray has been an absolute monster. I mean, if you look, the fact that he's had 59 or more DK points in 3 of his last 5 games at 9-8, and I mean, there's no Drew Holiday to chase him around, right? They don't have Holiday in there. It just seems like a spot where I get it. I think people could talk me into it. Maybe Bryce will. I know he likes Murray a little bit sometimes. I just think there's going to be other studs I'd rather get to. That's going to be one of the things I run into. But to be fair, we might have so much value where you might just be able to mix and match studs. And if no one's going to be on Murray, you could make a case for it. Other than that, though, like I've been preaching for a while. I don't think Bogdanovich is a good play at this price. I think he's very mid. I just don't think you want to play him. He gains ownership because the projections just pop him every single time. I think he's a very bad play. He is someone that I would want to be under on. Clint Capella, I would consider being under on too in this spot. At 6'6", a guy that's not getting enough minutes, right? He's basically getting like 26 minutes a game. I just don't buy it. I think Bruno Fernando is a much better play than Capella. So the only plays I'm looking at the Hawks side is Bruno Fernando if you need some value, unless other good value opens up. And then DeJounte Murray as a spend. I guess I talked myself into it a little bit more. And then Peyton Pritchard and all the other Celtics are definitely in play, but Peyton Pritchard is the best play on the slate right now.
Yeah, I love Pritchard, and I think maybe the best case for playing DeJounte Murray is if you're playing a few Boston fleeces, right? If you're trying to play Pritchard and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Obviously, you don't need a run back in the NBA, but I think this would be a situation where kind of tough for Atlanta to keep up. If the Boston guys do well without DeJounte Murray having a big game, he's obviously been a huge piece of their team with all the injuries. Bryce, obviously an important game here, Boston and Atlanta. What do you got for us?
Completely agree with Travis on Pritchard. The guy just fucking nuts it in every game when he starts. Assuming that he starts, and I don't really see them like not playing a traditional point guard, which would be the only way he wouldn't start. So, I mean, assuming he starts, I think he's the best play on the slate in terms of like point per dollar. The rest of Boston is pretty much in like at all like the big man spots and whatnot. So, I'd probably think Boston would be a max 3 situation for me here and be super high on Pritchard. Like, I think mixing him in like with like, I don't know, say Brown and Porzingis is totally fine. I think like Tatum and Brown might be a little bit of overkill. You'd kind of need Atlanta to like really run up the score in this game. It is the nut matchup. So I do like the Boston studs here a good amount. Don't really have any love in like an Al Horford type of guy, but it's like Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, and then I really like Pritchard here. Atlanta side of the ball, I mean, you could also play like a Sam Hauser off the bench, but like I think that's like getting super thin. I would rather just jam in more Pritchard than like get extra like Hauser exposure or something like that.
Yeah.
If Hauser was to somehow start here, and I'm not expecting him to start, you know, I would like him, but you know, I think it's gonna be Pritchard, Brown, Tatum, Horford, and Porzingis here. So that's pretty much it for me on the Celtics. You know, I think Travis gave a good breakdown there. In terms of
minutes, Porzingis minutes have been down recently. Some
Yes.
blowouts in there and stuff. Anything going on there? He's not officially limited or anything like that?
No, he's not officially limited. You know, I think he's going to be like completely unknown because of the minutes stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he can still put up a huge game in limited minutes, but it's just such a good matchup against Atlanta. I don't think he's like an amazing player or anything, but I would sprinkle him in. I mean, Tatum and Brown are going to be like the guys playing the big minutes here, and you know, Pritchard's going to play a ton. In terms of Atlanta, I really like Devontae Murray. Without Jalen Johnson, I mean, there's just literally nobody else on this team that can score. You know, I mean, outside of like Bach. So, you know, I think that Murray kind of has to do well. I don't think it's like an awful matchup for him. You know, Boston's defense is so good, but like, you know, two of their absolute best defenders are out and defending the guard position tonight. So I actually think this is a really solid spot for Murray. I'm going to be well over him compared to the field. Bog will be in my pool. Capella and Hunter will be in my pool. I agree that Bruno is a play over Capella, in my opinion. You know, they're basically, you know, kind of splitting these center minutes pretty evenly. You know, I don't think you need to go down to like a Vic Krejci. Like that's more of like a short slate type of play. But yeah, Pritchard, Murray, Tatum, Brown are kind of who I'm gravitating towards here.
Yeah, makes sense. You're gonna, I think, want to get some serious exposure to Boston. We're all 3-8 on Pritchard and Tatum, Brown, and maybe Porzingis looking pretty good to me as well. Let's go to the final game here in the 7:30 Eastern time window. It is kind of another doozy of a game. Detroit at the New York Knicks. Knicks huge favorites in this one, sitting around 17-point favorites, 211 total. The Knicks will, of course, be without Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Alec Burks recently ruled out, OG Anunoby going to miss this game. And then on the Detroit side, missing Cunningham and Jalen Duren, so they're starting point guard, starting center. Fontecchio has been ruled out as well, along with Quentin Grimes. Taj Gibson is out. Isaiah Stewart is out. Oscar Thompson is out for Detroit. So really kind of down to a little bit of a bare bones roster. We should see Ivy, Sasser, of course, Wiseman going to get the start at center. It looks like Metu at power forward. He played 38 minutes in the last game, and then I'm not even sure who the fifth will be. Just a mess of a team for Detroit right now, and they obviously go up against a New York Knicks team that can put the defensive slow teams down defensively and playing pretty well right now. You can see that obviously reflected in the line. New York favored by 17. Tough game here, man, going. At least in theory, a lot of value on Detroit, but kind of like the Toronto value. It's, at least from where I'm sitting, a little bit uncomfortable to play, especially in this tough matchup. What do you have for us, Detroit and the New York Knicks?
Yeah, one thing to call with the Knicks, they're in a pretty heated playoff race. They're 14.5 back from the Celtics, which is a half game out of third from the Cavs, who have been falling. And they're only 3.5 back of the Bucks. And they have one more game left against the Bucks. So this is definitely they're going to start, I think, pushing their starters, because the 2 seed is actually a realistic thing. And Thibodeau already pushes his starters, but it makes the case that we just want to, I think, consider jamming these guys basically down the stretch here. So I think Josh Hart at 7-4, the minutes he's playing is just absolutely nuts. It's hard to ignore anyone that's going to play 40 minutes tonight against this team. I mean, I would roster Rubio Dimes playing 40 minutes against the Pistons tonight. So even Snyder, I think Snyder would be in play as well. But I think you have to like Josh Hart. Good spot at 7.4K. McBride, I don't mind at 5.4. His minutes have definitely been a lot stronger. He's going to play a ton of minutes, so you have to like him. Jalen Brunson. Brunson is definitely not a bad spend, but I do think I prefer some of the cheaper ones just because I don't know if I want to allocate my salary in that way. And then one guy that we should mention, and he's been really good lately, is Isaiah Hartenstein. Yes, the minutes have been down, but Pistons are so bad against bigs, and he's only 5.6. It's just like in this matchup, I definitely think that we should be considering him for sure. The Pistons side of the ball is clearly a spot that we have to look at here. Jaden Ivey at 6.4K, he's fine, but I just don't think he's one of my favorite Pistons. I don't mind James Wiseman at 5.7K. I don't think he's a bad play. I think he has upside at the price. He can get into foul trouble. Keep in mind, there is risk with him, I think, still at this price tag. Marcus Sasser at 4.7. He'll come into play next. I believe he will be one of the starters here. I think he'll be a starter. Metu, he could possibly start too. And even if he doesn't start, I think he's probably the best value on the Pistons side of the ball. So there's clearly a lot of good plays here in this game. But keep in mind, Monty Williams, you know how he is, DC. He can do whatever he wants. So that's why I get a little cautious with the guys that are expensive because, you have to play the majority of the minutes to really get there. So that's one reason I'm a little more cautious with Ivy and Wiseman. Not that they're bad plays, but I just think some of the values are a little bit better. And specifically, Chimezie Metu. I think he is the best value on the Pistons side of the ball.
I agree with you on Metu, and I think the expensive Pistons, they make me uncomfortable tonight. You can just get the rug pulled out from under you by Monty Williams, and they're not that cheap where, if they lose their minutes that they're going to get there anyway. What about you, Bryce? Detroit and New York, tough game here. What do you got for us?
Well, the nice thing about Tibbs is even in a 17-point spread, if there's any coach that's going to run these guys out there for way too many minutes, it's going to be him. Mm-hmm. Kind of makes me like the Knicks. I think they're pretty solid leverage plays. I think they go under-owned here. If I had to rank them in terms of how much I like them, I mean, Detroit is so bad across the board that it's like kind of whoever wants to get theirs tonight should be able to on the team. I would rank them Brunson, and then Dante I like. I mean, I like Hartenstein. I think he's going to go like really undervalued here, in my opinion, compared to like what his ownership's going to be. I like that call from Mangone. He's been absolutely smashing lately, and Wiseman is an absolute sieve defensively. Yeah. Miles McBride, he's going to play a ton of minutes. Josh Hart's going to play tons of minutes. I would be okay. I think like two Knicks would probably be.
I was going to say, how many do you think? Two, maybe three?
I still need to build. I was on a plane all day, and it's kind of hard to build in the air. And, I think these guys are good plays. I don't think they're like amazing plays as to where like definitely not four. I think three could get it done. But I think I'm probably going to, just because of even with Tibbs, this is an insane blowout risk spot. So yeah, I do like the Knicks here in this spot though. In terms of the Pistons, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. You want the cheap guys here. Knicks are such a good defensive team. This team total is so disgusting, but if Metu and Sasser are going to run out there and play 40 minutes and Metu is, 3,900 on FanDuel. I think he's one of the absolute strongest plays on the slate there. Still like him on DraftKings. Don't like the expensive Pistons as much, and expensive's a relative term, but Ivy and Wiseman, I'd rather play Ivy than Wiseman here. If Wiseman gets tons of minutes and stays out of foul trouble, he can smash. He played 37 minutes the game before. He played 27 minutes last time, but that got cut short because of foul trouble here. Like, they're still going to be in my builds, but I would prefer to go to like the cheap Pistons, and like the more like expensive mid-tier Knicks is kind of what I'm ending on. And then I know we had talked about projecting the lineup. I think Sasser, Ivy, Wiseman are absolute locks to start. I think Metu starts, and then if I had to guess, it'd be like Troy Brown. If Troy Brown starts, I think I think he's worth a look with how cheap he is. Just like not a guy I love, but he's a guy I would keep in my pool.
Yeah, that makes sense. Detroit and the New York Knicks, pretty good. Should be a pretty good DFS game there, at least on the Knicks side of the ball. I do think Wiseman has the upside, but maybe not worth the risk if you're playing just a few lineups on this slate. That's the 7:30 Eastern time games. We do have 3 games locking at 8 Eastern here. First one, we'll talk about Phoenix and the San Antonio Spurs, 2 of the overall healthier teams on this slate, except for, of course, the big news, Victor Wembanyama going to sit this one out. Of course, that changes everything about the Spurs. Does bring guys, I think, like Zach Collins into play, makes him an interesting play on this slate. Gives a bump, really, to all the Spurs that get minutes. Phoenix, though, is fully healthy and playing decent basketball right now. So you understand why they're big favorites, too, favored by about 12. Really high total, sitting at 234. You got to imagine Phoenix is probably putting up a big number in this game, man, going. Problem is, they got everybody healthy. Booker, Durant, Beal, Nurkic, all going to be in. Even guys like Grayson Allen and Eric Gordon are going to play in this game. So a lot of mouths to feed in Phoenix. Certainly a very good spot, overall against the Spurs, especially without Wembanyama in there. But a little bit tough, given they're high priced as well. Let's go back to you, Travis. Phoenix and the San Antonio Spurs. What do you see?
Yeah. So one thing with the Spurs, like they just played Phoenix and lost by 25. Devin Vassell only got 24 minutes. Like these starters that are normally good plays, without Victor Wembanyama in the lineup, like there's more of a chance of a blowout. And we know when the game blows out, Popovich does not play his starters as much. Now he always plays Wemby, his normal rotation, but I would just be cautious with the guys like Vassell, Trey Jones, Jeremy Sokan. These guys that are a little more expensive and normally starters. Zach Collins is a great point per minute kind of producer. Some might say elite fantasy per minute producer when he's in there, DC. So I think Zach Collins is a really good play. Even if he only got you 24 minutes, I still think you'd pay off the tag. It's just a good spot for him. You worry about foul trouble, of course, with Zach Collins at almost any time, but that's what happens with guys that are really good fantasy producers. They're super active on the court. He's got to be in play for me. I like him a lot. Now, when it comes to these other guys, like the Champagny, Barlow, Branham, Blake Wesley, I don't trust trying to play the guessing game with them. Now, do I think that if the game blows out, some of these guys could get extra run? Yes. Do I trust trying to take the chance on it? No. I think we're going to have some really good values on this slate where I don't think we have to take those chances. So I'm likely going to be out on these Spurs options. If one of those cheap guys did start that I didn't expect, that I think will play in blowout and will play as a starter, I'll consider that guy. But that's really it. I want to be very cautious with these guys. Just don't think they're the best plays here. The Phoenix side of the ball, I think Devin Booker, fine. Like Beal, Nurkic, all these guys, the studs, like you could take them as one-offs. But just understand, if you're playing them, you're probably playing them because they're going to be very, very low owned. You like their upside. You hope the game's a little bit closer. But there's other studs that are better studs on this slate. Like if you play a Kevin Durant and he only goes for 39 DK points, understand the risk that you decide to take before the game starts, because that's kind of what you're doing there. It's not an amazing spot for these guys. I much rather spend on some other studs that we'll get to here in like the next 4 games.
Yeah, let's go you, Bryce. Phoenix and the Spurs. What do you see?
I think I'm a little higher on the Phoenix studs here in general. I wouldn't necessarily play these guys together, but Booker at 8,900 is a really good price. I definitely feel best about him of the Phoenix guys. I would feel worst about KD here. In terms of Phoenix value, don't love the value. I'm mainly sticking to the main 4 guys, Durant or Booker. I would rank them Booker, Nurkic, KD, then Beal, and then Grayson Allen last. I don't think you need to dumpster dive. We have plenty of value on this slate. So, there's just no reason to take some of the shitty value plays on either side of the ball in this game. Like San Antonio is kind of the same way for me. Like I kind of want like the 5 guys that I feel good about would be Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and Jeremy Sohan. So, I really like Collins here. If I had to choose one guy to play in this game, it would for sure be Collins. Sans Wembanyama, he has just really, really good numbers and really good rates. I find it hard for him not to play minutes as to where like I would want him. Keldon Johnson would probably be my next favorite, along with Devin Vassell, and then Trey Jones and Sohan would be a little step below the other 2 guys for me. So I think Collins is one of the best plays on the slate. So I'm going to have a lot of him, and then kind of mix and match the rest of the Spurs here. Not going to go with any Spurs value, as we do have actual good value on the slate.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I don't think you want the value really on either side of Phoenix or San Antonio, but the studs, I think, are decent plays, especially on the Phoenix side. We'll keep it moving. Washington and Chicago up next. Chicago favored by 12.5 in this one. Total sitting at a pretty healthy 226. We do know Kobe White, Dalen Terry going to play in this one. Alex Caruso questionable for the Bulls. And then on the Wizards side, a lot of injury news here. They'll be missing starting point guard, obviously, Tyus Jones, Kyle Kuzma, their best player. Umanyori is out. Landry Shamet is out. Looks like Jordan Poole going to play. He was questionable throughout the day, but he's going to be in there for the Wizards. So do we have a Jordan Poole game on our hands, man? Going, I thought AP was scheduled to be on this show. Maybe he saw that he was going to have to recommend Jordan Poole, and he pieced out. He gave Bryce a call. He's like, no, I can't take it from the crowd with Jordan Poole. I'm not quite sure. Man, go and talk to us, Washington and Chicago.
I mean, AP is a pool party guy. I think he's talked him up enough this year. Poole, Denny Avia, both those guys are clearly in play with no Tyus Jones and no Kyle Kuzma. Like, there's opportunity there for them. I typically, when I look at Poole, I want to understand, what does the game look like? Are they playing like, I don't know, OKC or the Celtics? If they are, then Poole might not get those minutes. Against the Bulls, I don't know. I feel like they'll be okay. It is on the road, but I think Jordan Poole at 6'7", I think he's in play. He's not a great play. He's not this play I'm running the play, but I think he's in play. I prefer Denny Avia. If I had to pick one, it would be Denny over Jordan Poole for sure. I'm curious to see what the starting lineup is, because the other day they actually started Rashawn Holmes at center over Marvin Bagley when they could have played Bagley. So I thought that was interesting. So that's going to be something to watch for. The Bulls side of the ball, any big man against the Wizards is in play every single day. So Nikola Vucevic instantly is someone that you have to consider, no matter what. MME, single entry, anything. He's got to be in the conversation. If you don't want to spend at center, that's fine, but he's got to be in play for me. Kobe White, I know he was coming off the bench not too long ago, DC. If you're looking at his game logs and confused, he was coming off the bench. Then he became a starter again. So they are back into that normal, like, Chicago Bulls type rotation. But the problem I have with it is Ayo Dosunmu, yes, he played 40 minutes, but he got 26 TK points last game. Like, it's just, yes, this is a game you could do it, but it's 7-1. Do I really want to use my salary towards Ayo Dosunmu? Probably not. Now, if you want to make the case, don't take him out of the MME pool. And if you get a splash of him, it's not the end of the world because it's the Washington Wizards matchup. Sure. But it's going to take a shit ton of lineups for you to get on. I think Alex Caruso at 6K and Ayo Dosunmu at 7.1K. That's all I'm kind of getting at there. So the main guy that I like on the Chicago Bulls side of the ball is Nikola Vucevic. He is one guy that I would definitely consider. Washington side of the ball, Denny and Poole are probably the 2 top guys I would look at. When it comes to all these other plays, between the Kisperts, the Butlers, the Champagnes, the Baldwins, one thing I feel like I've learned over the past 2 weeks, and when you play every single day during this time of year, you definitely start to learn some stuff. Like, Jared Butler has been popping in projections, specifically on FanDuel. And it's one thing I haven't totally been buying. He popped on, obviously, the day that it was a really good play. But if you're playing FanDuel specifically and sites are projecting him high, I don't buy that. That's where I make my own adjustments. That's where I go through and I just say, I don't need that much Jared Butler, or I'll just X him out. I just don't think he's that good of a play. Like any of these other smaller pieces on the Wizards, I'm not buying it. The only one I would buy is if Rashawn Holmes started. I think he could be a really interesting play, but the rest of them, I'll play other values on this slate that we've discussed.
All right, that's Washington, Chicago from Mangone. Bryce, your take on these two teams?
Yeah, I'll touch on Chicago first. I think it's kind of hard to play these guards with with like all of them back. I think AO to me is like pretty unplayable. We saw Caruso leave the last game with an injury and come back in. Midday downgrades are never good. If Caruso sits, I would feel much more comfortable playing like AO. But I still have Caruso penciled in as the starter here. So don't have tons of love for AO with him. If Caruso is to sit, I'd play some. I think Kobe White's an okay play. Favorite plays here are Vooch and DeRozan, and in that order. I like Vooch a good amount at center today. DeRozan, I think he's an okay play. I don't think he's a great play. Definitely going to have some of them, but it's not a guy I'm going hard at or anything. And then cheap Bulls, same story as other teams. Don't want anything to do with them. Moving over to the Washington side of the ball, Kuzma out's the big news here. Jordan Poole's going to chuck shots. I don't necessarily like Poole, as much as probably the industry will. I'd likely be slightly under him. I'm always okay being under on Jordan Poole. So, I'm not saying he's a bad play. Like, he's going to put up shots. I just think his range of outcomes is high enough to where like there are multiple paths for him to fail here. So I'm going to have some. It's definitely not a guy I'm Xing out, but I'm likely going to be under the field on Poole. The rest of the Wizards, are a little tough. I think Avija would be my favorite one outside of Poole. With Bagley back, like the him and Holmes thing is, kind of tough to decipher. I think Rashawn Holmes would be my favorite play out of those two. And then, you can round out your teams with Corey Kispert. He's not like a primary play for me or anything. And then don't have any love for any of the cheap Washington guys here. Don't really see many routes to any of them smashing, except for like Patrick Baldwin if he starts. I think he would get into my pool, not as like my favorite value play or anything, but his rates are really good when he starts. So he's someone I take a look at. I'm not really sure who's going to start for Kuz here, but he would be my guess.
Yeah, Poole, I'm seeing around, I don't know, 20 to 25% ownership, maybe. Obviously, in NBA, those things can change in a hurry, but yeah, I mean, big slate. He's not that cheap. Like you said, he could get benched. It's not even a very good individual matchup for him, right? I mean, Chicago plays some really good on-ball defense at the guard position. So I'm kind of with you. The Poole chalk, I think I'm probably going to pass on it for the most part myself as well. Let's get to the final game here in this 8 Eastern time window. Portland and Houston. Houston playing some good ball right now, trying to sneak their way into the playoffs. They are favored, big favorites, obviously, over Portland, 13.5 point favorites, 224 total. Houston will be without Jabari Smith, obviously still missing Elprin Sengun as well. Tari Eason remains out. Cam Whitmore will miss this game. So Houston definitely a little bit shorthanded. And the Portland Trailblazers will be as well. Anthony Simons, did he get rolled out? He did, right? Yeah, he's out for this game. Brogdon remains out. Sharp is out. We should see big rolls, I think, from both Scoot Henderson and Delano Banton. We do know Jeremy Grant out as well. And then DeAndre Ayton, obviously, he's been playing well in the second half of the year for the most part. He's questionable. So tons of moving parts in this one. I think another really interesting game, man, going Portland and Houston. Go ahead.
Oh, you have me intrigued. I didn't think I remember looking at the West a while ago and being like, oh, there's gonna be no battle for the play-in game, but Golden State, if they somehow miss the play-in, like that'd be crazy. And so you have me intrigued. They do play Golden State on Thursday, April 4th. So that'll be a fun game. And they're only one game back right now. So yeah, Houston is playing well. Jalen Green has been playing incredible. 8.8K. I mean, listen, when this guy's cooking, he literally does not care and just shoots every shot. He looks everyone off. And a matchup that he could pop off is this matchup. If you told me they were playing OKC, I'd be like, okay, he might draw Lou Dort defense or be in a tougher spot where I wouldn't be as excited. I think you want to kind of play him when you think the spike performances can come. It's one of those spots where I think the spike performance can happen. It seems like a pretty good spot for him. So we saw the spike performance against Utah. We saw it against Washington. I mean, those are teams that we always target. I mean, he's been absolutely incredible. 50 or more DK points in 4 of his last 5 games. It's just hard to argue what he's been doing. So I'm interested in Jalen Green in a very easy matchup. It does feel like Fred VanVleet, he's a fine play, but he's definitely not someone racing to play. MME, I'm sure I'll have some exposure. Not a bad play on this slate. Amen Thompson at 6'8". I don't think he is a terrible play at 6'8", so he's someone else that I will consider. Jock Landale has been very up and down. It just depends if he gets that run. You could make a case that this is a matchup where he could get it. I think there's kind of better options at center, so I doubt I will get to much of him here on this slate. For what it's worth, though, Jabari Smith Jr. is missing, and that could obviously be beneficial for someone like him. And, of course, Dylan Brooks. He's not someone I love to play, but the counter argument to him is you want to play him in games where it's going to be some sloppy basketball and just like the turnovers he's able to pick up. He can score in transition. It is one of those games that you can make an argument for him. If we are lacking value, I don't think it's crazy on this slate. The Portland side of the ball, we kind of need some of this news. DeAndre Ayton is questionable. DeAndre Ayton has been an absolute monster as of late. If he's in, he will be a very contrarian low-owned play that I don't think you should completely ignore with Simons and Brogdon out. If he's out, and even if he's in, I think Scoot Henderson is a really good play. I think if we have DeAndre Ayton out, you're going to like do-op Reith at 4.9K. And then keep in mind who the starters are. Like if Jabari Walker starts at 4.6, I think he's a good play. Chris Murray at 4.3, if he starts, he's a good play. Kamara at 4.5, he would be a really good play. The starters are going to be important here. Now, are they important enough to backload your lineups and say, I need this piece of news? No, I don't think they're like that important, but I think they're good plays. They're plays that if the news comes, I want to go and late swap all my MME teams. Like I think it's important to do it. But in single entry stuff, do I think you have to go out there and like prioritize it? No, I don't think you have to say, hey, this is a spot where I know guys are going to smash no matter what. I need to get them on my teams.
All right, Bryce, let's go to you, Portland and Houston.
I think this is one of the better games on the slate in terms of fantasy. I think these Portland guys might be a little undervalued here. Favorite play, I'm kind of assuming Ayton sits just because the rest of the guys are sitting, so it would kind of make sense for me to see them sit. But
is Grant sitting, Bryce? Did I see he was questionable?
He's doubtful.
Yeah, he's gonna sit.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. That's a good call.
Yeah, Ayton's the one that's up in the air. I'd lean towards him sitting. It's just like it's harder to swap off of Ayton than onto Ayton. Like say you build without Ayton. But I like whoever starts at center for them. If Ayton plays, I'm gonna play some Ayton for sure. They're just missing such crazy usage from all these guys being out. Like, if they're keeping the game close, it's likely through Ayton down low, and it's like. Is Jock Landale a good defender? Probably not in the long run. Even if he gets a couple steals and blocks, I think it's a good matchup for whoever starts at center here. I would definitely be interested in Reith if Ayton sits. Kind of expecting the team to be the exact one they ran against Denver with Scoot, Rupert, Murray, and Kamara. Don't really have much interest in Rupert, even if he starts. It just seems like they don't want to play him and they want to play Banton and just keep Banton off the bench. So like his and Scoot minutes get staggered a bit. I like both. I like Scoot and Banton a lot here. I think Murray's a very solid value play. I think Kamara, he's going to play a ton of minutes. I think he's definitely going to be in my pool. I mean, he's going to play like 40 minutes here, I think. So yeah, I think there's good value on this slate where like I'm definitely not going for Portland, but I think Portland's a 3 max team for me here for sure. Houston, pretty much hit the nail on the head with Jalen Green. The guy absolutely loves to cook, and it's always much easier to do it in a matchup against Portland and Scoot Henderson defense. So I think him and Fred VanVleet are pretty solid plays here. I wouldn't expect to get super low ownership on those guys based on what they've been doing recently, but it's still kind of a hard click for Green at 8.8K. Like if you're like manually building teams. So, I'm going to have a decent amount of him and Fred. I think Thompson is a good play here at 6.8. I don't think he's going to go like crazy owned or anything like that. So definitely going to have some of him. I think I think Dylan Brooks is a good contrarian option here for cheap. Definitely going to be including him in my pool. He's ran really bad recently in terms of like his minutes. I think his minutes are going to be up in this game, and a matchup against Portland kind of suits his play style. So have interest in him. Center is not my favorite position today. I'm definitely going to be playing some Jock here. He just has a super wide range of outcomes, which are the type of players I like to take shots on that nobody's going to play. So I'll have some Jock in this spot. Don't have any interest in like anyone outside of the starting five. I expect the starting five to remain intact, just with Jock in for Jabari Smith. If Jock wouldn't start for some reason, I don't think I'd really want to play him.
Here's a good question for you guys. Actually, that's a good one too, DC. But my other one I was going to ask was, Duop Reith. Let's say DeAndre Ayton's out. Duop Reith or Zach Collins. They clearly lock at the same time. They're very similar price tags. They both play center. Sure, you could say, yeah, you could play both. But let's say you've locked yourself out, right? You just can't play both because you're playing a lot of guards and you got one in the utility. Who would you pick between Duop Reith and Zach Collins?
I'd probably go Reith just because, I think with the late swap stuff, I think Collins is going to be higher owned out of the group.
Yeah, I lean Reith as well. What about you? You're saying DC?
I was gonna have the same answer. Collins will definitely be higher owned with the late swap, and then I don't really trust the minutes for Collins. I don't know. I just think that those could not be as secure as maybe they seem, even with Wembanyama sitting. So 3 for 3 on Reith there. It's close for sure. What about Ben asks, can you play Scoot and Banton together? To me, that's a little thin. You think you can though, Bryce?
I think that they're cheap enough and their minutes are staggered to the point where you can play them together. It's not a rule that I'd restrict.
Yeah. What about you, man?
They've seen a decent amount of time on the court together as well. Sure. You just need Rupert to play like 18 minutes like he did the other night.
Yeah, you would definitely. I think you need Ayton out. I think it helps if Thibault questionable sits too. We think Grant is sitting with the doppel tag, and I'm not saying Banton, like I know Thibault plays like the 3 and the 4 more, but like you can easily put Banton at the 3 at times, right? Like it's positionless basketball where just more guys out could help make that work. I think I would want that situation a little bit.
Makes sense to me. Let's get to the last 2 games on the slate. It's Dallas and Utah, Memphis and Denver, both blocking at 9 Eastern time. We'll talk about Dallas and Utah first. Dallas relatively healthy for this one, going to be without Josh Green, and then Maxi Kleber might also sit, but we know how Dallas runs the team. It's a lot of Luka, a good amount of Kyrie, and not a whole lot from everybody else. Utah going to be without Chris Dunn. It does look like Jordan Clarkson is going to play in this one. And then I think I saw Markkanen is, he's available to play as well. They should have, Collins, Kessler, and I think Yurtseven available too. So Utah getting a little bit healthier here. One of the healthier games on the slate overall. Dallas favored by 7.5. Monster 238 total in this one. we'll start with you, Mangone. I suppose it kind of depends on the value as always, but are you trying to prioritize and get Luka into your lineup tonight?
Yeah, so I always thought about how like we need value to do it, in my opinion, and we have the value to do it. Now the only thing I'll argue is like Kyrie is there. This team is healthier. If he's just the raw scorer of the slate and gets you 70 plus, he's a great play. And he's obviously been amazing this year. He gets a good matchup against Utah. I don't think Luka's like a stone lock. I think he's a really good play. I think he's been in better spots. Utah, I have a new rule with them. My new rule is max one of them right now. It's just a really tough spot with them. DC, I know you said you're in Vegas. You didn't catch everything. You missed Johnny Juzang got to start the other day. Utah is just doing stupid shit. I do not trust them. I think Colin Sexton has the ability to pop off for big enough games. I think John Collins has the ability to do it, like Lauri Markkanen, sure. But I don't think they have the ability to really do it together right now. Definitely max 2. Max 1 is one that I'm really starting to do, though, with them. And I don't know. Maybe I rule myself out of a win, but I don't think it's completely wrong right now. I think it's more beneficial. So I'm going to be very low on Utah overall. The main guy that I like is maybe taking a shot on like a Colin Sexton just because of the upside that he has. I guess you could make a case for Walker Kessler just because Dallas has been really bad against opposing big men, and Kessler's minutes have been okay. And Bryce said it a little bit. Like, center's not amazing today. There's some good cheap values, but it's not like it's incredible. And then Luka, like I said, if you have to spend, that's perfectly fine. And yes, Steven, that's exactly it. Utah is just doing stupid shit. I will stand by that. And there's a couple of those teams right now, right? You can't figure out what they're doing. And instead, let people play too many of those guys while you go under the field. I promise you it's going to be better long term.
Yeah, there's a few teams doing that, and there will be a few more joining them over the last few weeks of the season here. Let's go over to you, Bryce. Luka, I mean, this is an amazing individual matchup for Luka. He's torched this Jazz team through 3 games this year, averaging 64 fantasy points per game over those 3 games and just 33 minutes per game as well. A couple blowouts in there, I believe. Obviously, you can fit Luka tonight if you want to. There is enough value, I think. What are your thoughts on getting Luka in there? Anyone else on the Mavericks, and what are you doing with the Utah Jazz?
I like Luka a ton tonight. I don't normally like him quite as much, but his ownership projections across the industry are pretty down. So, I think it's a good game to get over on Luka. You have plenty of value to fit him in. Like there's plenty. Like you get Pritchard, and then you get a bunch of these 4K guys that are really good plays. Like, say you play Sasser, Luka, Pritchard, and Meadow. Like that still leaves you like a lot of money for your team. I think he's a pretty tough ask on FanDuel. I think he's more of a cash play in general. I mean, it's just harder for him to get there at stocks. Like, I mean, he's so expensive, and I always prefer him on DraftKings. I'm still going to play a good amount of Luka tonight on FanDuel, but it's just it's a little harder for me to do that. I think Jokic being a game time decision, like, if you have the ability to late swap, like you can at least late swap from Jokic to like Luka. Like if Jokic doesn't play, I'm expecting him to play here based on the spread though. So yeah, the rest of Dallas is kind of whatever. I would not play Luka and Kyrie together. I think Kyrie's playable, but it's definitely not with Luka. I think Gafford's a pretty solid play here. He's just shown like mega upside, and Utah's what I think a pretty good matchup for him. PJ Washington is interesting to me. He just plays a ton of minutes for them. He hasn't really like had an explosion game yet, but if he hits some shots, I mean, he's certainly cheap enough at 5'2". Don't have any interest in anyone on Dallas outside of them. Utah, I don't think I'm going to be as extreme as max 1, but I think they're definitely a max 2 team for me. By far my favorite play here is Lauri. He's like the only like safe play on Utah. The rest of these dudes' minutes are just such shit. Definitely agree with what Travis said. Like it's kind of a clown show right now outside of Lauri with their rotations and extremely hard to predict. I don't mind trying to take chances on some of the other guys, but not gonna be high owned for me in general. I think Clarkson would probably be my favorite outside of Laurie. I think Sexton, to me, I would rather take chances on the guards with Dunn out. Like, they're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing if anything sticks, and nothing has stuck. And it's basically those three for me. I don't really want to take a chance on any of this cheap Utah value, even if it does pop up late.
Makes sense with Utah. I'm with you guys. Don't want to be too heavy on them. And yeah, Luka looks like a pretty strong play in this matchup. We'll finish the slate with Memphis and Denver. We'll do plays of the day after that. Hit the like button if you haven't done so yet. It does help us out. And I believe we still have promo code March 15 running over at RPS if you want to get in on the action for the rest of the tournament. NBA action. Of course, we got baseball coming up Thursday, UFC, golf, tennis. Got everything over at Run Beer Sports. Promo code March 15. Let's get to the last game of the night. Bryce mentioned the spread. Denver favored by 14.5, 214 total. And like you said, Bryce, I do think that spread indicates that Jokic should be in there. But he is officially questionable along with Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter. So 4 of their starters are listed questionable for this game. Memphis side, missing a ton of players. Obviously, Luke Kennard, Brandon Clark, John Conchar, all going to be out. Jake LaRavia, questionable. Vince Williams is doubtful. He should be out. And then Desmond Bane looks like he is legitimately questionable in this one. I kind of lean that the Memphis guys are going to sit whenever there's any question mark about it, just because of the state of where their season has gone and where they are right now. But of course, we'll see on the Memphis guys and the Denver guys. Pretty tough with all this news still to come on the last day or last game of the slate, rather. But yeah, do your best here, man. Go and break this one down for us, Memphis and Denver.
Yeah. Also, speaking of March 15, if you want DC's 5 favorite plays in his cores, that's where you can get them. We're not going to go through each guy at each position. That's basically giving out a core, Brandon. So go sign up. Another reason to sign up, DC, I don't know if you caught this in the Discord, our own Big T with his Nuggets sources giving out who he thinks is in and out tonight.
I did not see it.
I'm not going to give that away. I'll let you, I'll let you guys sign up if you want to get that information. But I'll just talk like, hey, I think these guys are in play. If let's say 2 of these guys sits, it's a clear bump to 2 of the other guys. Let's say 1 sits, maybe it's just a small bump to some of these guys. Like, if they all play, I would not be as excited about them. The only reason I would like Jokic if they all played is because I might just have the money to spend up, right? Because I have so much value on the slate. So Nuggets definitely in play. I will say Big T is speculating that there are, some guys out tonight. I'm going to adjust those projections beforehand. The reason why I'm going to adjust it beforehand is because this game is at 9 o'clock Eastern. We have a lot of games locking at 8 o'clock Eastern where I will know the news in time where I can adjust off of some of those plays and onto some of these other ones. So that's kind of how I am going to handle everything with the Nuggets. The Memphis side of the ball, listen, Memphis is one of those clown show teams right now. Really tough to know what's going on. I know they talk about sometimes on the premium show. We got a guy that, talks about the, some of the Grizzlies stuff with us and gives us some kind of takes on who he thinks is in and out. I truly don't know what's going to happen with them. I'll just make the adjustments when it comes, right? If Jordan Goodwin happens to be a starting point guard and guys are questionable and there's not a lot of guys in, I'm going to like him. If a lot of guys are out and Scottie Pippen's the starting point guard, I might like him. Gigi Jackson could be in a good spot. Santi Aldama. I just don't know. It's hard to really have a take on it. Also, Memphis, let's say all these guys decide to play or a bunch of them try to play. That's going to make the situation bad, and I'm on some bad plays. So not a spot I love these games.
All right, Bryce, finish us off here. Memphis, Denver. What do you got for us?
Tony's info is pretty valuable here. So I'm just going to go through, kind of if each guy sits, like who it would benefit very quickly. We're running a little late, but it's a stacked slate. If Jokic were to sit, whoever starts at center would be an absolutely very good play. I think it would be DeAndre Jordan, but I'd have less interest in him than, some people might. If Murray sits, it's just a direct bump to Reggie Jackson. If Porter or Gordon sit, it's a direct bump to the opposite one of them, and then whoever would start for them. I'm assuming that it would be like a Braun or a Peyton Watson. This is just a clear late swap opportunity, and something that you're going to have to be on top of throughout the night. And if these guys sit, like, you could see KCP play extended minutes too. So I definitely think you want some Denver exposure, and then be able to late swap it if the news doesn't break as you had initially intended it to. In terms of Memphis, and then if Jokic plays, I think he's like a really solid play. Like, all four of those guys that I just mentioned, like the ones who do play, I think are really good plays here. Even in a higher spread game, if any of these guys sit, that spread's coming down, and I think like Memphis has the ability to keep it competitive depending on who sits from Denver. If they all play, I think they probably blow their doors off, but it's not like you're absolutely dead or anything. They're still playable. You just need the game to stay a little closer. Memphis side of the ball don't really have any tons of interest here. I think it's probably the team I'm going to be absolutely lowest on here. I mean, Gigi Jackson would probably be my favorite play. I don't really want Jaren Jackson against Jokic. Don't really want these guards. They're thin, but they're not like crazy thin. Like, it's a tough spot for me to get to. I'm just not going to have many of them.
You're going to be out of roster spots by the time Memphis comes around, basically. I mean, it's kind of what it is. I think
especially if any of these Denver guys sit, it's like you're just going to load up on end up swapping off like all of Memphis and on to Denver.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. That is all 9 games. We do, of course, have the Up to Lock show coming up at pretty much right after we're done here. We'll take you all the way up to lock, and it is a very important slate for that. So members, get on over there. And of course, anyone else that wants to sign up, get on over to the Discord, get in the Up to Lock show. And those guys will take you home all the way up to lock. Of course, answering questions in the Discord throughout the night, and hopefully get into the winner's circle. We'll get out of here in a minute. Before we do, let's do the plays of the day. Obviously a little bit tough on this slate, Mangone, with all the news to come. But give your best shot. Mangone's play of the day.
Yeah, definitely tough. But for me right now, we're going to go with a guy playing against the Pistons. I think he plays if the game is tight. I think he plays if the game is a blowout. I think it's Miles McBride. He's been getting a ton of minutes, and I'm going to be on the Miles McBride train tonight. He will be my play of the day.
I will go to Boston, and I will go with Mr. Jason Tatum. I think he's in for a big night. Going to carry the offensive load with the point guards, or both guards, starting guards for the Boston Celtics out. And you do get a little bit of a discount from him over guys like Luka and the Joker. Bryce, take us home here with your play of the day.
I think Peyton Pritchard is going to be super high owned here, so I will go with Scoot Henderson instead. I think Scoot is one of the absolute best plays of the day. He's going to put up 1 million shots here. I'm not worried about Houston's defense. I think he's a really good leverage play for what I'm seeing as ownership projections around the industry, and will be one of my bigger buys, if not the biggest.
That's all 9 games plays of the day. Thanks for tuning in as always. We do appreciate it. And of course, Up to Lock show coming up for members right after this. For Mangone, for Third and Schlong, I'm DC, and we're out of here.